Do I believe in angels and miracles? Yes, I do. Have I ever seen one? Well, let me tell you a story that happened to me a few years ago, and then you can tell me what you think I saw. It was about 2 years ago. I had just finished attending a job seminar that night in Boston. I had just missed the train back to Lowell, so I had an hour to kill before the next train came in. It was pretty noisy there, and I had a headache, so I decided to take a short stroll around and find a Dunkin' Donuts. Instead I found trouble. A couple of guys started yelling out all sorts of nasty names at me and referring to money owed. I was sure they were mistaking me for someone else. So before I got too close, I stopped, and put up my hands, and shrugged my shoulders, then shouted, "Who, me? You don't know me? You are mistaking me for someone else." Well, that seemed to only piss them off. They started running toward me, swearing their heads off. I spun around, and started running away. I ran to where there was people, thinking this would be the safe thing to do. But these two guys start yelling out, "Stop him! Stop that man! He took my money, stop him!" Then some people were grabbing at me and trying to trip me. This was all turning into a real nightmare. I was running frantically, and praying, as I ran. I had no idea where I was, or where I was going. I ran into an alleyway, right into a person, knocking them down to the ground. I stopped, and helped the person back up, apologized, and sped back off. Though it could have been because of the frantic rush I was in, but I could swear that person had no face. It was, as if it was blurred out, it was just a haze. But I had seen the rest of the person very clearly, including the duffel bag he or she was carrying. At that instant, the image of this faceless person just branded itself into my mind. It took me a few seconds to remember why I was running in the first place. I looked back, and saw the two men turn into the alley, but no sign of the faceless person. I ran even harder, till finally the alley opened up to a main street again. I was so tired now, limping and gasping for air. I was still moving forward, but hardly. I thought I was a goner now for sure. I kept looking back to see where the two guys were, but they never came out of the alley. I fell to my knees and crawled into a building's doorway. I rested, and tried to collect myself. I calmed down a little and noticed that during my escape, I had lost my briefcase and one shoe. My foot had been cut from glass or something sharp. A few people passed me by and I could tell they pretended not to have noticed me. Still quite tired, I managed myself back to my feet, and peeked around the doorway. There was no sign of those two men. I took some tissue paper I found in my pocket, and stuffed it in the bottom of my sock, to protect the gash in my foot, brushed myself off and started down the street again. When I reached the corner, there was a 24-hour Dunkin' Donuts. I went on inside and sat at a table. I couldn't even buy a coffee, what little money I had was in my briefcase. So I just sat there with my head down in my arms with my thoughts, and I dozed off. Then I was suddenly woken by an employee. "You have to go now, you can't sleep here, take your bag, and go." I apologized for falling asleep, and told her that I don't have a bag. She said to me, "Don't leave it here, you came in with it, you leave with it." So I picked up the bag from the floor next to my feet. It was the same bag the faceless person had. I looked around and no one was around other than the employees. So I took the bag and started to leave. I paused to ask the girl behind the counter, which way back to the train station. She laughed and said, "You are practically in it. It's the next entrance on the right." My jaw dropped wide open as I turned, and walked out the door. I couldn't believe it. So I limped into the station, and sat on a bench and thought, what to do now? My train ticket is gone. I could explain to the conductor what happened. No, as roughed up as I am now, he will just think I'm a bum trying to get a ride. Then I was thinking of the duffel bag, and that faceless person. I don't know how I ended up with the bag. Should I just leave it? It wasn't heavy, it didn't feel like there was much of anything in it. I turned my head and looked around to see if that person was in sight. And when I was sure I wasn't being watched, I slowly opened the bag and looked inside. Strangely, there was a wire coat hanger, car freshener, 25 cents, a sealed envelope, and believe it or not, one shoe, and a train ticket. I tried the shoe on. It was the wrong color, but a good fit. The train just pulled in. I thought for sure I missed it again. I couldn't believe how everything is going, but I was so happy to get on the train. A few minutes after I sat in the train, a very large man came in and sat right next to me. I would guess he was a rubbish collector. I say this because of his dirty uniform and the foul smell coming from him. I was instantly getting sick to my stomach. There was truly an awful smell coming from this man. I wanted to get up and move, but he kept trying to make conversation with me, and I didn't want to offend him. Then I remembered the air freshener in the bag. When the man wasn't paying attention, I opened it and put it in my top pocket. It seemed to help me bear the rest of the ride back to Lowell. Finally, when I arrived in Lowell, I was on my way to the parking lot to get my car, and another man was outside the door begging for spare change. I reached into the duffel bag, pulled out the quarter, and gave it to the man. He seemed very pleased with the simple 25-cent piece. So I continued on my way to the car. Then I realized I don't have my car keys on me. I leaned over the car, looked through the windshield, and there they were, hanging in the ignition switch. I was about to lose it. I picked up a rock from the ground. I was just about to break a window on my car, when suddenly a voice from behind me said, "Do you know, I could open that for you, if I had wire." I quickly turned to see. It was the beggar I had given the quarter to. I dropped the rock to the ground and picked up the duffel bag, opened it, and dumped the last of its contents on the hood of the car. There was the sealed envelope and the wire coat hanger. I picked up the hanger and handed it to the man. He took it, nodded his head and said, "Yup, that's just what I need." He made a long hook from the wire, worked in and around the door for a few seconds, then he opened the door. I thanked him, and offered him a ride, but he said he don't need to go anywhere, and he walked away. I took the envelope and put it in my coat pocket, threw the wire and empty bag in the back seat, started the car, and drove off. I thought finally it's all over, just get myself home to the wife, get to bed so I can wake up from this nightmare. I finally made it home. My wife was already sound asleep. I didn't want to bother her, so I quietly got ready for bed, crawled in beside her and fell right to sleep. Then I woke up to breakfast in bed. My wife was all smiles and singing. This was strange. We have been fighting about my job the past few days. I asked her about her good mood. She tells me how happy it made her to find that I hadn't forgot our anniversary, and she loved the poem I had wrote her. I got up and checked my coat pocket, and the envelope was gone. I read the poem she spoke of. It wasn't very long but sweet, and it was in my handwriting, but I didn't write it. I tried to explain to her once, but it was just like she could not hear me. So I stopped trying. Besides, it made her very happy. Till this very day I'm still not sure what really happened that night, but I will never forget it, especially the faceless person. Oh yeah, and that duffel bag, it's gone. The wire was still in the back seat of the car. I still have the shoe and air freshener, but the bag was gone. So you tell me, did I see an angel? This was a short story by Leonardo Bjork.